ahead and call the meeting to order. If everybody could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bloom? Here. Mrs. Spiritu? Here. Ms. Laird? Ms. Lewis?
Here.
Mr. Price?
Here. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from our regular meeting held on March 13th, 2023, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Bloom. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Spiritu. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes, motion's approved. Legislative report. Chantel is running late, so we can come back to that
Sounds
later
good.
on if that's all right with you,
Absolutely.
John.
Yep, you bet.
As we go on. We just have one walk-on item.
Yes.
That will. Are we going to put that
Yeah, I'm going to put it on right at the beginning of the agenda.
under facilities and operations?
Actually with policies. Facilities and operations.
Okay.
We'll make that item 2
Okay.
when we get there. Yes,
All
sir.
right. Sounds good. So we'll just get to that when we get to it. So, moving on to our work session.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Price. We have a very esteemed group with us this evening to
I'm a little
help.
scared.
I know.
Nervous, actually.
They're going to analyze you and check you out.
That ain't pretty.
But one thing that we do really well here at Fremont City Schools is take care of students. And we all know kids can't learn if there's a lot going on in their lives that prohibits them. So we've asked Ms. Abernathy, our Student Services Director, to bring some of her rock stars with her tonight and kind of talk about all the things we do for kids. So Abby, I'm just going to turn it over and let you go.
Sounds great. Good evening. Thanks for having us. We're very happy to be here. So within our Student Services Department, we have a lot of little mini departments. The whole department is around 80 to 100 people. And it is paraprofessionals, bus aides, teachers, therapists, nurses, mentoring, preschool, transition counseling, disability services, school psychologists, behavior specialists. It's a whole slew of people. So I was lucky enough to have a few people come with me this evening because, again, they can do a much better job explaining what they do on a day-to-day basis than what I can. So our first page here is just the
that are at each one of our buildings for Fremont City Schools. I filled in as a substitute for 6 years before becoming hired full-time at Otis. I started the year of the pandemic. At that time, even though at times things seemed muddled, the role of the school nurse came into view for the public eye rather than hiding behind the misconception of what we do for the schools. I receive many responses from others when I tell them what I do, even from other nurses. They have similar responses. That's a great schedule. Summers and holidays off? It's just Band-Aids and puke all day, right? Don't you hear these responses? It's difficult to explain the complexity that this job gives to us. So what do we do? This list is not all-inclusive, but it highlights what we do as a school nurse, often not ending when the last bell rings. We do assessments for common illnesses such as the stomach aches, the coughs, etc. We do first aid to recess and PE injuries, from a twisted ankle to broken bones to lacerations. We administer medication, which includes oral medication, inhalers, EpiPens, seizure medication, etc. We do hearing and vision screening for multiple grade levels, referrals to be seen by a healthcare provider, and then follow up for the referral that was sent. We document for every visit, every phone call, every interaction. We maintain electronic health record as well as a permanent health record for every student. We handle clothing issues and bathroom accidents that are not part of a medical diagnosis. We are ready to perform CPR and choking procedures at any given moment. We respond to emergencies if needed with fires, weather conditions, emergency lockdowns, threats to safety for the school, etc. We provide education in the classroom for healthy habits such as dental care and hygiene. We coordinate the mobile dentist so students can be seen without needing to leave school. We do concussion protocols that last at the minimum of 15 minutes for head bumps, no matter how big or how small. We do chronic disease management within the classroom, such as asthma, heart conditions, diabetes, tube feedings, and seizure precautions. We train teachers about the things to report that are seen or observed in the classroom because we cannot be everywhere. We provide mental health supports and advocacy. We are sometimes the only medical professional for some students. We monitor chronic absenteeism and providing interventions to keep them at school. We participate and plan in 504 plans and IEPs when medically warranted. We verify immunization records and reporting to the state yearly for our numbers, verifying records from multiple sources, such as from the family, the health department, and doctor's offices. We write individual nursing health plans to support their educational services. We report and identify abuse and those in crisis, being the safety net for that child. We communicate with parents by phone and email. We communicate with counselors, therapists, physicians, dietitians. It truly takes a village. We organize and prepare medical needs for all field trips. We identify barriers in care to help students to be able to attend school. We make referrals to other health services and then the follow-up care involved with this. We do direct teaching to students to promote their independence in their own health and well-being, whether it is reminders for hand washing, proper use of an inhaler, pressure on the nose for nosebleeds, or giving themselves an insulin shot. We lead school employee wellness programs. We develop policies to address issues such as tube feedings and healthier school lunches. We provide immediate first aid if needed for employees. And we prevent and control the spread of communicable diseases with follow-up and communication with the health department. I have been a nurse for 22 years. This position is truly an important job as we are the invisible link that connects these children to school, to their home. We help them to be healthy, to be able to stay in school. We are their safe haven when they are overwhelmed. We do not simply hold a puke bucket or take a temperature or just put on Band-Aids. These are all valuable assets, but we will continue to be seen in this way until others understand the details that embody who we are as individual nurses and as a healthcare team. It is the hardest, most scrutinized, yet most rewarding job that I have ever had. And I am truly thankful that I am able to be a part of these students' lives. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Any questions for Brooke?
Thank you.
Well done.
Thing I like to point out is Brooke listed a ton of things that school nurses do, and that's not a hypothetical list of what they can do. That's what our school nurses do daily. All those duties that I hear on there are things that we talk about in our nurse meetings that our nurses do. So they do insulin shots, they do catheters, they do tube feedings on a daily basis.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I've been the principal of a building without a school nurse, and I remember a conversation with my superintendent at the time. Said, "Would you rather have an assistant principal or a nurse?" I said, "Nurse," because that's the kind of role they fill. It just is priceless. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move on now to mentoring. So we are fortunate enough in our district to have the ACE mentoring program that Mrs. Ray, as you all know, originally started years back. And we have about 25 students at the 25 at Ross, 21 at the middle school, I think, who participate and have an active community member as a mentor. And we are very fortunate that The United Way of Sandusky County does a lot of funding for us, and Susan Fry here is our ACE mentoring coordinator at the high school, and she writes our grant every year in collaboration with Cassandra Tucker, our other mentor coordinator. And like I said, thank you to United Way because they do offer a gracious donation to us every year. And I'll turn it over to Susan now.
Thank you. ACE Mentoring, Assisting Children to Excel, has been around since 2004. Dr. Gail Jackson is the brains behind the program, and then Violetta Ray took over, and then Cassandra and myself. When Cassandra and myself took over, we expanded it here to the middle school, so now we are grades 6 through 12 for the last 8 years with mentoring. We look for community members who would like to give of their time. I know Mr. Price used to be a mentor for us. Sometimes your job doesn't allow it anymore, but we're always actively looking for mentors in the community. We try to match students up with people or mentors that have the same interests with them. That correlation together helps tremendously with that. The idea is when you get with a student, you stay with them until they graduate, because that rapport helps throughout all of the grades with that. Presently, like Abby said, we have 25 at the high school and we have 21 at the middle school. We are always looking for students to be referred. Just because a student is referred doesn't mean that they've become a part of the program. It's up to the student to take the referral, the application home. After the referred, their parents have to fill out the first 2 pages, and then the last page the student does, and then we look at the student to return it. Because if you don't have buy-in from the student, the mentoring process is not going to work for them. So that's one thing. You may have to have multiple reminders, but if they're really interested, they will bring it back. Some bring it back the next day because they're very eager to have. I always use it as the idea of a big brother, big sister program within the school. It's nothing that happens on outside of school time. It all happens within the school building with that. We try to keep mentoring the same day, the same time each week. Stability and continuity is very important. If for some reason the mentor can't come, it's always funny. The kid comes that day. Hey, I didn't get a text or I didn't get a pass. Well, what's going on? Where's my mentor? Your mentor's on vacation or they have a meeting. They can't make it today. And then it shows how much those kids look forward to those mentors coming in. They don't just help them with their grades, their attendance, and home life. They look at plans after high school that they can help them with. Any questions?
Who refers them? How do they get
Anyone
referred?
can. You could refer a student that you know. It can be someone within the school, someone within the community. Sometimes you have probation officers that do it. You might have someone in like a counselor. Anyone can refer a student. A student referred does not mean it's a student at risk. Anyone can have a mentor. Some students, they just want somebody else who's a neutral party. It's not their parent. It's not a teacher. It's somebody that's there for them and obviously to help them.
So they fill out an application. Is there a criteria for acceptance into the program?
For a student, no, not at all. Anyone can be accepted into the program. As long as you fill out an application, we will find someone to match you with. When it comes down to becoming a mentor, I usually wait to find a mentor till I have a mentee who's looking for something, because I hate to have a mentor fill out an application. Fingerprinting, because you have to be fingerprinted, costs, nice dollars, and fortunately United Way pays for that. So we wait till we find someone, and then I actually go after someone with the same interest.
Sometimes out of a discipline situation, maybe a suspension or expulsion, we try to steer them in that direction as well. It often is a good plan for those kids trying to get back in school.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right, next up, I don't have a representative from this department today. These people are all very busy this evening, unfortunately, but we do have student family support specialists. Some are known as social workers, some are not, depending on their criteria, their licensure. So we have Shelley Fannin, who has been with us for many years, and she is at Lutz and Otis. Jason Smith is here at Ross. Cassandra Tucker is at the middle school. On the next page, we have Casey Smith, who is assigned to Croghan and Atkinson. And then you'll notice 2 other faces, Allison and Reagan. So Allison and Reagan have stepped in this year and done some long-term subbing for us due to some medical leaves from a few people on there. And Allison was over at Croghan and Atkinson, and Reagan covered Lutz and Otis for a little bit. And I just wanted to recognize them. Allison has spent the entire school year with us due to a leave of absence and then a maternity leave. And then Reagan was covering a medical leave. So just wanted to kind of point them out to you guys because you may have seen them around. And some things that our student family support people do is they serve as liaisons and break down barriers that interfere with student learning. They help connect family with community resources. We have a district food and supplies bank, and they maintain that for us. They keep it organized. They watch our dates. They let us know when we're running low on something to do a drive. They do a really great job. Also, some clothes they keep in there as well. They help families coordinate medical appointments. They conduct home visits for educational and medical coordination. We'll send them out to the house if we can't get a hold of someone. If one of our nurses, need to send a student home, they'll go out and find out what's going on in the home, or maybe even transport the kiddo home. And they do assist with some short-term transportation needs for the families as well. That's just a few things. I know they do a lot more. I think we all know that, right? All right, next up is our counselors. So I'm going to start their elementary. We have Tiff Bilbrey, Jessica Avance, Juliana, and Nicole over at Atkinson. These 4 ladies are a wonderful team. They are full-time in each one of our buildings. Since we opened our new buildings, we have a counselor in each building full-time, and that's been an amazing asset for our students and our families. So the next page, we have middle school. I'm going to invite Jody Moss. She's a brave soul to come up here and speak. But we have Val Widmer, who is new to our counseling department this year. She left our special ed department and came to counseling. And then Ryan Wiggle, who is off work today due to him and his wife had their second little girl a few weeks ago. So Jody volunteered to come here and just kind of give a few aspects into her day.
Thanks for having us. So at the middle school, counseling in general, it's you never know what's going to fly in the door every day, every morning. Every day is completely different for me. I have a schedule of what I think I'm going to do, and that schedule goes right out the door the minute I have a student come in upset from the night before or a fight with their friend in the morning. So every day is, I always say, a new adventure for us in the counseling department. But we see students for all sorts of things, social issues, whether they're having fights with friends, social media issues, we get a lot of that. Family issues, whether, split households, custody, fight with a parent, sibling issues. We have a lot of that students just need to kind of sometimes bounce things off of us when it's not mom or dad as well. We see students for, I tutor students actually in the morning. I used to be a math teacher, so actually during homeroom I sometimes see students for math tutoring as well. I hand out a lot of work permits throughout my day. The students in my grade are turning 14, so they are at my door getting work permits is popular right now. Parent phone calls, I get a lot of those throughout the day on just whatever may be going on at home or parents' questions about whatever may be coming up. We are also in charge of 504s. So we coordinate with teachers. We do evaluations for 504s. We set up the meetings with parents, teachers, and we write the 504s for our students who need some accommodations throughout their day. At the middle school, we do have character months that the counselors are in charge of. Each month we have a different character. So we've had like responsibility, respect, kindness characters. So we've put out activities for our students to do during homeroom, videos about that character. And then at the end of every month, our teams nominate a student that represents that character. And then we have pizza parties at the end of first semester and second semester for those students to honor them. We do a lot of mental health counseling. We have a lot of students that, struggle with their mental health. So I also then have to refer students out for possible evaluations, talking to parents, working very closely with families. I do talk a lot with outside counseling agencies. A lot of our students are in counseling, which is great. So I do talk with their outside counselor on and off just to better help that student with whatever they're working on to help them manage throughout the school day. So scheduling is another thing counselors are in charge of. Right now it's our scheduling season, so we are scheduling students. So I'm the 8th grade counselor, so I schedule 7th grade coming up to 8th grade, and each grade below then schedules for middle school and then on to high school. So just some of the things that I guess we do on a daily basis and more. et cetera, et cetera.
Jody, could you estimate how many students you see in a day or talk to? I'm sure it changes widely, but
Yeah, it could change anywhere from, 5 or 6 on maybe a slower day up to maybe 15-ish
yeah.
or more on a tougher day. We also do lunch duty, so we're out amongst the kids during lunch duty and chatting with them during that time too.
Is there a particular area of mental health or struggle that you've seen a significant increase in? Or what kinds of trends are you seeing coming off COVID and that craziness? What's it look like now?
I feel like I've seen a lot of kids with a lot of anxiety over the past year or two, more so maybe than in the past. A lot of depression, just kids kind of feeling isolated, trying to find their way, and a lot of, just they self-isolate a lot at home. I don't think there's always a parent at home with them when they go home, so they're at home, they're isolated, kind of lost in their bedroom by themselves. And so there is a lot of depression that we see as well.
About social media impact on students?
A lot.
Yeah. I mean, that's a loaded question. I just threw that softball out there for you.
It is. Unfortunately, we have students that just don't know how to handle themselves properly on social media, whether it's putting something out there that they shouldn't about themselves, sharing things with others that they shouldn't, or posting things about others that they shouldn't. I have had talks with students too about being safe on the internet, because we have kids that, and I think during the pandemic, that also was a thing where kids were connecting with other kids, obviously through the internet. And, we talk about making sure that it's an actual kid that that you're actually talking to, and maybe not an adult. Thank you.
Thank you.
We also have 2 parochial counselors who are hired through us, and Keisha Kuhn spends a few days a week at Sacred Heart, and then Corey Foos has been with us for many years, and she is the high school counselor and junior high academy counselor at St. Joe. And when we meet as a group, they come over and meet with us, and they collaborate with us as well. And then we come up to Ross. So we have Bill Shell, Leslie Blanton, Melissa FJ, as you know, and Emily Huth. And I will let Bill kind of discuss what he does on a day-to-day basis.
So basically, what Jody said, again, I don't want to, bore you with the same information. We have a little bit more that we do as far as scheduling and testing things that we do with OST testing and AP testing and ACT, SAT, PSAT, all of the alphabets that we go through of testing. We are kind of in charge of that. And like Jody said, the higher rates of anxiety and depression right now since COVID is a lot. And to answer John's question about how many you see in a day, today I saw 3, but they were pretty good ones. I mean, I had Monday is my day where I answer my emails for credit recovery. So I email every parent. I have about 63 students currently on credit recovery. So those emails go out to those parents every Monday, giving them a progress report on how their student is doing over the past week on their credit recovery. So I look forward to that first hour and a half of just emailing. Well, in that first hour and a half, I had 2 possible children's services referrals. So that went gone out the window, and then everything got pushed back. So I got about 5 students. There's been days when I could see 25 students because we're doing a quick touch base checkup. I call them a checkup. It's like going to the dentist. You got no cavities, good, you can go, you're out. And then if you need more, you need a filling or something, or you're going to stick around a little bit longer. So it's that kind of the day is never the same. It's one of the things I like most about the job is that you never have the same thing twice. And the other thing that I really like about the job is I don't have to wait for a bell to use the restroom.
Freedom. The freedom.
Those days are behind you, huh?
Long gone. We also have a therapy dog at Ross, and I try to bring her at least twice a week. She's got her own slide. Check that out. Yeah, I try to bring her at least twice a week. The kids absolutely love her. Some kids will, come down to see just the dog. You know, they'll just stop in to get a quick pat of the dog or a quick, rub, scratch of the ear or whatever, because she's got a way about her. I've seen her do some amazing things, calming people down, calming parents down. At one point, there was a young man in my office who was not doing well in school. His dad came in and was just reading him the riot act, screaming at him, and you could just see the son cowering down in his chair, and the dog just went over to the father and put her head on the father's lap, and the dad starts to pet the dog, and his anger level goes, which meant he could talk, and then his kid could listen. Instead of just being yelled at, they were communicating rather than a shouting match. And I just had to sit and watch. It was kind of nice because the dog took care of that on her own. But she's a good addition. She likes to have the run of the main office area at Ross High School. If you've been over there, you understand what I'm talking about. And I would say more than half of the people in the office have snacks for her, so she'll go trick-or-treating every once in a while, try and pick up something. But she's definitely a good addition over at the high school. The graduation pathways, there's another thing. I mean, each grade level has something a little different. I'm mostly concerned with getting my freshmen adjusted from going from middle school to high school. There's a big difference there. And then in 10th grade, they're starting to look at the Vanguard component. And 11th grade, we're starting to look at, are we getting all of our things in a row, all of our ducks in a row, so that next year we can walk out the door with our diploma. And then, of course, your senior year, it's a big process with the senior counselor. There's a lot to do with getting them ready and making sure their SEALs and their competencies and their test scores and their credits are all taken care of. So, and it's something that we kind of do together. All four of us together, we work together very well. We pick up each other and we help each other out when we can and when we need to. So, and it's also a blessing having Carmen, who's going to talk next, who takes our most in-need students and she helps them through some very serious crises. So,
Bill, I was just noticing of you four, that's a pretty veteran group, isn't it?
yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was trying to think, the last, who's the newest on there?
Emily Huth,
Emily, and that's how many years, probably?
8 maybe?
Wow.
Maybe 8 years.
That's
She
I think
was
that's
there
tremendous.
for Tyler, my son, the year before Tyler, and he's been out.
It
He's
was
graduated college
14?
already.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think it's a tremendous group.
And we get along real well. So
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a
that
good
helps.
team.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like there almost has to be like a continuum of care if you're, starting with the freshman and then.
We keep our notes and we literally on Google Docs, we pass them forward so that, and Jody does the same for me. She'll send me, here's my, for lack of a better term, my frequent flyers. And then I touch base with them very early to make sure that they're good. And then I keep tabs on them so that we're not dropping somebody through the cracks accidentally. We make sure that we know what's going on, and all of our offices at the high school are right next door to each other. So if Leslie, our 10th grade counselor, needs to know something from freshman year, she didn't understand something, she just pops over and asks, and we just communicate with each other that way.
That's awesome.
There are some schools that actually have counselors rotate through with the class, but I think what we've got is really better because you really get really good at the testing or the graduation or scholarships. I mean, those things are just, there's such a high stakes really for the counselors to make sure kids have what they need. I think really this model works very well.
Yeah, you get very good at your niche,
Slice,
your slice of the pie, and like I said, when it comes time for graduation, Miss Huth and I are in charge of the graduation, but Miss Frizzell George and Miss Blanton come that day and they help us out and they do what they need to do because it's a big event and we want to make sure we have all hands on deck. So they just, we just help each other out when we can.
Two things I want to point out. The first thing is when you call over to Ross and have to talk to a counselor, there's times that I might need to talk to Bill, but Leslie's available. Talking to one is like talking to the other one. They collaborate, the same as at our middle school. They collaborate multiple times every day. They are true comrades and they're friends at work. And because of that and their professionalism, our kids really benefit from that. And then also, I just want to point out with Sloopy that she is a certified therapy dog. It looks like she has like a cape on, but it's really her vest. I think she needs a cape, but that's just me. I don't buy her treats, so maybe I'll buy her that.
You did buy her treats on Counselor Week.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yep, yeah. We don't forget about her, but
You didn't forget about her.
right. So she is a certified therapy dog, and Bill goes every year, I believe.
Yeah,
and
she
then
has to be recertified every year.
I get her little license, and I always share it out because it's my favorite email of the year to get. So.
Are there any other service animals in any of the other buildings?
I've taken Sloopy to the middle school before. I've taken Sloopy over to St. Joe when they were going through a bad situation a year or so ago. I've taken Sloopy to Oak Harbor High School. They had lost a student to suicide. So we go where we're needed. I know Mr. King has a therapy dog that he kind of brings in to the elementaries, and they read books and stuff with that with his dog. But that, as far as I know, there's not any other ones that come to school regularly.
The other one would be Kimber, who travels with Deputy Johansson. Right. And she's not a therapy dog. She's a drug sniffing dog, but she's a lover, so it all works. Yeah.
She's a similar impact.
Very similar. Yeah.
And Mr. King's dog, her name is Wrigley.
Yeah, Wrigley. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then to round up our counseling department is Carmen Curran. So Carmen is stationed at the high school, and this is her 7th year here with us. And her position is a little bit different. She'll go over that. But I will let you know that she is funded, her position is funded through the Mental Health Board of Sandusky, Seneca, Wyandotte, and Ottawa counties. So, Carmen?
So yes, Carmen Curran. The way I kind of describe my position at the high school, because I'm a licensed school counselor as well. I'm the counselor that really gets to focus on the things going on in our kids' heads and in their hearts. So in the school counseling umbrella in our world, what the things that we're responsible for are 3 main pillars. That's academics, college and career readiness, and social emotional development. So a lot of times the other 4 counselors in my building get bombarded with having to do scheduling and 504s and all of those academics, college and career readiness pieces, and they don't get as much time in their schedule to do the social emotional. You know, obviously if crisis comes knocking or someone shows up at their door at a bad day, obviously they're going to take care of that, and they do a very, very good job, but they have a lot of other responsibilities. I'm kind of the opposite. My day is allotted primarily to those social emotional issues, and then I can kind of help with the other things as they come up. And I can just kind of piggyback on the work that they do. But my primary focus is the social emotional. So all day long, I'm either meeting with kids individually, or throughout the year, we'll offer different small groups, and that kind of is kind of depends on the need of the student body at any particular year. And that kind of fluctuates year to year too, in terms of numbers, how many kids sign up, how many kids are referred. It's been very slow this year, small group wise, if I'm being honest. I tried something a little different this year in terms of offering groups just during study halls, because that makes a whole heck of a lot of sense, especially since those academic minutes are really crucial right now coming off of COVID, and because we have study halls this year during every single class period, and the signups weren't that great, so maybe getting pulled out of class every once in a while was more of an incentive than I realized. So I'm still honestly, after 7 years, trying to figure out the perfect way to run groups. I don't know if there's an answer to that, but I'll keep looking. But I attend a lot of wraparound meetings. I make those referrals. We, as a counseling team, certainly refer out collaboratively, whether that's with some agencies that we've kind of partnered up with this year, or just other counseling agencies in the community. When I can, I'll try to attend the monthly the Firelands meetings. They host a meeting monthly, and some of us are able to attend to kind of, again, collaborate on mutual students. I will attend pretty much whatever meeting I can possibly go to on a student's behalf, if I can do that. Currently or lately, there's been a lot of children's services calls. There's been a lot of collaboration or consultation with our school SRO, and usually that's Stacy Robinson. But sometimes, if it's a student that lives within sheriff jurisdiction, we got to talk to Joe Hansen or whoever else is available in that regard. So that's been a topic of interest lately. Like Jody, I think, said, just communicating with outside providers. And I've kind of found in my spot too, it's also educating students and families on what that might look like, because that's often some of the stigma around getting help is it seems really scary, or it's off-putting, or what is that going to look like? So I have found that I kind of almost have to educate kids and sometimes families on what to expect. You know, that first session when you go in is a lot of yes or no questions. It might be kind of boring that first time because they're just information seeking. So to not base everything that could potentially be in the future on that one time with that one professional. So we kind of go through that. I don't know. I try to tell the kids that I just try to provide them a space to be authentic and genuine with whatever they're thinking, whatever they're feeling, whatever it is they're going through, and just give them a positive taste of what it's like to just have an outside person to talk to. I have found that by the time the kids get to the high school, most of them have either had a negative interaction with a counselor of some sort, or they've had a friend that has had a negative interaction, so it might as well be theirs. So I just try to, and that's not by any means saying anything bad about my comrades back here, but and that's perception too, you know, so the kid could have not been in a place to receive that help, and that could have been a determining factor too. But I try to break that down and just give them an opportunity to have a different experience. And so when I find when I'm talking with a student that something's bigger than the support I can provide at school, because there's just some topics that probably are better said and talked about outside of school hours because it's just too painful. So if it's too big for the support that I can provide in the limited hours I'm in the building, I am kind of like, I like to think of like the bridge between some of those more traditional school counseling roles and clinical counseling. You know, I can connect families with resources. I can help make phone calls. I try to teach students how to kind of shop around for a counselor. Not everybody knows that you can do that or that there's resources to be able to do that. We don't live in a world anymore that you literally just have to call up Firelands or ProMedica and just say, who do you got? There are resources available to kind of set yourself up for success. And especially at the high school age, when kids feel a little more invested in that process, they often have better outcomes. So that's a lot of what I do. Any question?
We have two agencies outside right now that come in, two outside agencies, that come in.
Yeah, we have Family Life Counseling and then Choices Behavioral Health Care.
Carmen, would you how many kids those agencies are seeing inside the school day? Any idea?
Well, we just started working with Choices, so
Right.
there's just been a couple referrals made out there. But with Family Life, I don't know what the total number is currently, but I know that once we got the green light for that, we swamp them in referrals. So I know that we made far more referrals than they could actually see, and they're chipping away at that list. And we had some hangups with Medicaid and Ohio Rise and all that good stuff, but they're seeing as many kids as they can. I think hopefully next year there will be some kinks worked out, and hopefully we'll be able to service even more students. But what came of having that opportunity was there's absolutely a need, and we can fill whoever's schedule is given to us. Because if you could see the master referral list, it's long. It's really long. I think we made, just at the high school, from the time Family Life came to us in December, we at the high school alone made 33 referrals. So it was just kind of nice knowing exactly like what the policy and procedure was, how we were going to do this, and what their process was. So I think that was really a great step in the right direction in terms of just making it all that much easier to make referrals, and there not being any questions about it. So
Where do the typical referrals come from?
In our building, a lot of them will come from me,
Yeah.
because that's kind of the way our how we've set things up. You know, if a teacher is kind of seeing something go on, they'll suggest that the student goes and sees the grade level counselor first, and they kind of work with them first. And then if they feel like it needs to go to me, they'll kind of refer that way. Now, it's not, it's not always that way. Things come up, other situations arise, but that's kind of the track.
Sure.
And then I make a lot of the referrals out, but we have it set up. And again, because we collaborate and communicate so often, it can come from any of us, but we all have access. We've got it kind of organized on Google Drive. Everything's in one place. But we know what the process is in terms of getting the release of information, sharing that information out with an outside provider, having some communication with the parent before we do that. But that goes with the release of information. But it's all organized, documented in one place, so any of us can do it. And then, like Bill said, because we're all in one hallway, it's really easy to, pop in and out of each other's offices in between kids. As we send a pass and we've got 30 seconds, we can, talk to one another about different things. So,
John, can you elaborate a little more on the Family Life program? What all is?
I'm going to refer to Abby, just kind of, she kind of did the recruitment of that program. Go ahead.
So Family Life and Choices are very similar in nature. I'll kind of back it up a little bit. So 5, 6, 7 years ago, you really didn't hear a lot of services coming into schools to provide them, outside services. And then times have changed, and now they're able to come into schools. A lot of that had to do with billing, where they're able to set up sites and be billed. Because if they come into schools, they got to make sure that's a site that they can bill insurance or Medicaid and profit to pay their counselors. So last year, about this time, I think Family Life Counseling approached one of our community or our family liaisons and said, hey, we really like to come in. We know there's need in Fremont because there's need everywhere. And so she came in and met with us, and I presented to Mr. Detweiler and Mrs. Hurt, and they thought it was a great idea to move forward. So they come in and they provide usually once a week, maybe once every other week, maybe once a month. They come in and provide a counseling session with our students. And then we also have a records release so that they can collaborate with us too. And we bring the family in. It's, no secrets or anything. And they come in and provide that. They're mostly at our elementaries. I've gotten great feedback from the counselors and our staff for that. And then Choices is similar. They have the same credentials to be able to provide counseling anywhere. They kind of call it counseling on wheels. They can meet the families in the home, which is an awesome, awesome idea. They can meet them at McDonald's. They can come to the school. Even this summer, if there's a spot around town they can meet at. And that also kind of keeps their overhead costs lower because they're not paying and maintaining for a lot of office space in buildings. They're able to kind of go and use others. So that's been new to us this year. And then, like I said, Choices Behavioral Health is new. They just moved into Port Clinton, but they're in all the major cities. So they're starting to grow in their area. And Mike Kasperchek, the gentleman up there, who's a Fremont resident, actually reached out to me and said, hey, I'd really love to come in and talk with you. And we talked like within 2 weeks, and then he met with all the counselors. He's been in for a visit, very similar to how Family Life worked out last year for us. And the referrals have started because we're firm believers in, it's all right to have more than one cook in the kitchen, just as long as they're good cooks, and that they're able to, have staffing to serve our students and to serve the needs, within our buildings. And with 3,600 kids, it's going to take more than one agency. So that's where we're at.
And what's nice about having these agencies come in is that it overcomes that barrier of transportation. Because that's a huge barrier in our community, is kids just physically getting to counseling appointments. So that has been a really, really big plus. And especially we have, a lot of large families in our district too. So if it's not a parent being at work, they might be responsible for 5, 6, 7 other kids that they're trying to get to and from places. And there's only so many hours in a day. So this has been a really great opportunity for our kiddos too, in overcoming at least one of their barriers to getting the help and support that they need. So.
And removing some of those, like you said, the stigma of walking into a counseling agency and being judged if you already have some reservation about going to counseling or seeking counseling, period, when we can meet the kids here at school.
And it kind of helps in that transition too, because, whether it's Mike or Maria Maxwell with Family Life, at least at the high school, it's been nice because we can kind of do a soft transition with them. If they have rapport with me or Bill or any of the other people in our department, we can go with them on that first session, even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes, but we can kind of help them feel a little more comfortable. And like I said, kind of a soft transition. And I think the kids have responded really well to that.
How is the parental involvement, and I guess for everybody, like the parental involvement with,
In regards to working with family life and choices?
or just in general, even in what you're doing every day?
From my personal experience, I think it's actually been a little bit better this year. I have made a lot of parent phone calls. I think I'm at like 70 on my parent contact list, and it's not honestly that much usually. It's usually a lot, but it's only March, so we got a lot of school year left. But I think it's been really helpful, again, like I said, having just a laid out procedure that we know what our steps are. And so if we're better prepared as the professional, I feel like that just is conveyed better to whether it's the kid or the family. And when we can speak more confidently about the referral or the referral process, I think it helps the parents trust us a little bit more. I think it empowers them to be able to follow through. Like I know when I was making family life referrals, like I knew exactly what I was telling them. So-and-so is going to be either calling or texting. Here's the number. Here's what you have to do next. Nothing's going to happen until you do X, Y, and Z. When you set up that appointment, it's going to be about 60 minutes on average. And then after that, they're at school, we're taking care of the rest for you. But it was really great being able to tell the parent exactly the steps of what was going to happen, so there were no questions. We can't do that for every agency. We don't know how every agency works, but, we're at least to a place now where we've got lists of other agencies. If we can't get them in with choices or family life, here's some other options. Again, like I had said about kind of educating them on how to shop around, but we've got a nice resource list of counseling agencies, Fremont and the surrounding areas, their websites, their phone numbers, things like that. So it's nice to have things to be able to provide and empower parents with too. Because sometimes if you've been blessed to not have to deal with crisis, you don't know what to do when crisis hits. And when crisis hits, you're just in survival mode. So when we have resources that we can provide in the moment, it's really, really helpful.
And there was a point, I think, too, when we were getting referrals or a kid in crisis, and you'd call some of these agencies outside and say, "Oh, we'll see you in a month." I mean, that
We're there now.
Oh, yeah.
I think so. I
Right.
mean,
A lot of
So you
a lot of
recognize that.
places are on a pretty significant
That's
wait
just
list.
not going to work. Yeah.
well, then yes, because parents and families or children and families get discouraged. Like,
Yep.
I'll never get any help and
Yeah.
whatnot. Do we have like with these two particular agencies, speaking, I guess, to responsivity, like a diverse group of people? Because we all know that one of the stigma with counseling is if there's somebody who doesn't look like me or can't understand some of my
Culture.
pain and my culture, the culture of poverty, race, religion, sexual orientation, all those things, that's another deterrent. So
That is the topic of conversation when I have met with them, just about, we have a diverse group of students and staff here in Fremont, and we want that to mimic our services as well. So and I think Family Life has had some turnover this year as well, and naturally, it's nothing on the company, it's just a natural thing that's happened. And there was always, even pre-COVID, I remember talking with Tim Wise at Firelands, and he would no more than get fully staffed, and then 3 or 4 people would leave. And
Yep.
the frustration on him was very apparent as well. So, that is something that they strive for as well.
And I think that makes our counseling team at the high school really dynamic as well. We have different ages, we have different experiences. Before we were counselors, we have men, we have women, different, ethnic backgrounds. So I think that kind of makes our team specifically dynamic as well. Because there are times, a kid comes down to me and, maybe they're a young man in crisis and they really would prefer to talk to Bill just because Bill's a guy, and we can make that happen. So yeah, absolutely. They're tied to a particular grade level, but, there's always circumstances where that gets thrown out the window just to help the kids. So
nice. Good.
Are there resources for families that don't speak English, another language?
Well, we have some Spanish-speaking people in our building, so we certainly lean on them when we need to. And then anytime that we can have a resource in Spanish, and we can certainly look at, and we need to look at expanding, not just Spanish, but other languages as well. But I don't know of any specific referral out that we make for.
Because it makes it difficult, like if you need a service and then you have to have somebody within the school that you know to translate for you. Now you're opening up to more than one person, or not comfortable with somebody that you know. So, I mean, it's very important to have the
And
different
I think,
resources.
at least in our building with Norma Vela, she's been great in making some referrals to us for young people to come and talk to us, because she knows her group of kids really, really well. And when she recognizes there's a need, she'll reach out, and she kind of does that soft transition too. She'll kind of come down and help share some of the story or the need or what's going on. And then that is nice, because usually she's got a pre-existing relationship with the family. And then that's kind of our in too, to kind of better meet them. And I know I've sat in some meetings with Norma and some families that are Spanish speaking only, and we just have a close, intimate relationship or conversation. And yes, Norma does the translating. But I think she does a really good job at being the glue to kind of help facilitate building a relationship, even if there's a language barrier there.
We do have different technologies across the district we use, and we've also used some outside agencies. In my department, we have a family who is hearing impaired, and so we have an agency in Sylvania we use that'll send an interpreter to us. So that way we're using someone right live in person and not trying to use anyone on a screen. Also for different, we've had a few students who have come to us who are very limited English speaking, and so we've had some other companies come in, usually out of the Cleveland area, and help with translation on some different dialects from China. So those are specific examples that my department's used. Also, Family Life, I want to throw out there too that they also have a crisis portion to them. So if there is a crisis situation here in Fremont, it would be that we would all get together and kind of work it all out. But now we're able to call them in. That's part of our plan with them. And it's at no cost to the district. Both providers are free to the district, but they can come in and help kind of walk us through that crisis, which is good, because a lot of times our counselors or our teachers know the students well, and they need to take a step back and be helped and not be part of the solution. You know, they need to be, helped as well. So that's another benefit to Family Life.
That's a very important piece.
Mm-hmm. Right.
John, has there ever been any conversation about financial assistance to some of our professionals to learn another language specifically?
I've never.
That would be the demand in the community.
Yeah.
And I just think that would be dollars well spent.
Absolutely. No, I agree. And I think Mary Alice's point is so true, because it's such an intimate conversation. To have yet one more person in the room who has to be in that loop is a big barrier. Yeah. No, I don't have anything like that, Chantel. It'd be interesting to consider that. Learning a language is tough. I've tried my whole life to learn a language. I can barely manage English, but no, that's a good point.
Just thinking about our mission and so on that we've been working on.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of that.
It's huge. Yeah.
Thank you. I used to have a little bit more, and I promise then I'm done until June. So we also have a transition coordinator, Barb McNutt. She works with our students on transitioning from school to adult services, vocational, college. She typically works with students on IEPs and 504s, but that's not her. She's not limited to that. So wanted to share her information. She is a wealth of knowledge. She knows Ross better than all of us combined, I think. No disrespect, but she knows everything. I always go to her. She has a great relationship with Vanguard and our students who go back and forth. She helps bridge some of those gaps, and she's an advocate for our kids there as well. So she's pretty great. Then I go on to our preschool coordinator. This is Tiff Beeler. We work with North Central Ohio ESC for our preschool, and I have some stats on the next page, but Tiff oversees the federal and state compliance to preschool, which is amazing, the amount of information. She's probably forgotten more than I'll ever know. Also, she oversees our Step Up to Quality rating. We have a 5-star rating in each building, and to be part of that, you have to have certified staff, certain amounts of professional development. Your curriculum must be approved. So there's binders and lots of work, and we are the highest star we can be in each one of our preschools. So, and she oversees that. So. Okay. Like I said, we work with North Point ESC. We have preschool classrooms in every elementary building, which is awesome. Since we've built these new buildings, we have dedicated space. Preschool students who require special ed services, those are provided in our classrooms or in private preschool classrooms across the district. So you will see our staff go into Rainbow Station, in the YMCA, into Vanguard, into Angie's Angels, WSOS. WSOS is wonderful, or GLCAP, thank you, because they actually have a office space for our itinerant preschool teacher there. She's one of them. It's great to see. So we have a lot of students there. We have 188 total preschool students we serve, ages 3 to 5, and 122 of those require special education services. So our numbers have never been this large, and you'll never see them this small again. They have grown every year. We've had to hire additional staff just to remain compliant. But our preschool staff is second to none. They're amazing. And last but not least in this department is Kelly Clark, our behavioral specialist, and she provides supports to teachers and families. She serves on IEP and 504 teams. She conducts behavioral analysis for students and helps provide interventions. And we have one behavioral specialist district-wide, so she stations herself at certain buildings on certain days to assist staff. And again, she's as busy as she'll ever be. And she'll be more busy tomorrow than she was today. That's about half the department. So when I come back in June, I'll go over the other half. So anyone have any questions for me?
One of the things that we get to work on with these two fine people here is the budget. And while it's not always a fun task, it's so important because it provides. It's a source of provision for what tools you need, what people you need. So if money weren't an object, and you don't have to answer this today, but I
want to look at Megan.
Truly, if money weren't an object, what would you ask for? If you could have anything, what would it be? And if you could send that to John, and you don't have to tell us who sent it, I would love to hear what that is, because that sets the course of what we aim for later. You know, there was a time where, the big wish was that kids wouldn't have to pay to play anymore. Kids don't have to pay to play anymore. It took setting that thing to aim for. And it can take some time to get there, but if you could give us what to aim for in your area, then we can start making it a reality.
Thank you. I will work on that. Thank you. And just in closing, I just want to thank everyone for coming. These brave souls behind me, when I said I was coming here, they were all like, yep, no problem, and we're here. A couple extras I didn't know were even coming and showed up, and I'm so appreciative of them. They are truly rock stars. I'm really honored to be able to lead this department. I walked in 7 years ago into this department to lead it, and I had such great people, and I continue to have great people, and it's benefiting our kids. So just wanted to publicly thank them for letting me lead them, because it's a big honor to do so.
Was there maybe someone we didn't introduce there? Maybe we should. Ms. Amor's here.
Jody Amor, she's our nurse at Krogan. She came to support Brooke. You can see it's a wonderful crew.
Yeah.
And I love it when we all get to meet in 126. Usually Mr. DeValler pops in and sees us for a minute, but we'll be there for hours, I feel, collaborating and growing. So.
And you can tell that just by how you all interact with each other. You can definitely tell that.
And I think, again, we say this almost all the time, having this second board meeting become a workshop.
Yeah.
This is on video. This has been live streamed to anybody who's watching it live, but they can go back and see this. I mean, as a parent, I wouldn't have known, even my wife being a teacher, she doesn't know all these services, and so for community members to hear what there is, especially for the mental health aspect now, it's crazy. And it's running rampant. And, I would hope every district offers this to their community, but I think, for what we have, it's an amazing amount of work that you guys do and what we offer our students and families and community. I mean, being able to be mobile for this stuff is crazy, but I think again, just having this as a reference, they can hear it for themselves. Anybody can watch and listen and think, man, my kid could use that. Now I know who to contact, or I didn't even know that was available to me, you know, and those services are provided by the school district. What a great resource to have. So,
For sure. Okay.
okay.
All right.
Thank you very much,
Thanks, folks.
everyone, for coming in.
Thank
can,
you.
Thank
you can
you.
stay or you can run away. That's up to you right now.
That's usually the cue to run away.
Yeah, after you, it goes downhill. I promise. It goes downhill.
Mine's amazing. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. Megan's better. All right.
Would we, so we can come back to the legislative report? Is that okay with you, Chantel?
It'd be fine. I am so sorry. I was late. I didn't see your text.
Oh.
I went to the PAC. I'm not sure why.
No, I'm
But
so
I went
sorry.
there, but I just want to tell you, your security's great. Because the little gentleman with the yellow and gray vest
Yeah.
wasn't letting anybody going into that PAC.
It wasn't gonna happen.
You are, what you say is supposed to be going on. It was kind of funny. So, and then the last few times I've had to park in the back here.
Right.
So just a quick get around from where I was over here, the back door's locked.
Back door's locked. I'm so sorry.
So it's just
This wasn't meant to be, was it?
good.
Ta-da!
So there you go. We got it tested. I have a few things I'd like to report on for you. One, I just thought was an interesting piece of legislation that touches on that balance between property and possession of a public entity and student privacy. It's an interesting topic, but there is a bill out right now, Senate Bill 29, and it defines what schools can and can't do for monitoring of school devices that are given to students.
Oh.
This was a very interesting topic to me because in the private sector, any device that's given to an employee belongs to that employer. They can check it, inspect it, whatever as need be. Not so the case is what's being proposed.
Private property, right.
Exactly. Because even though the device is owned by the school and you potentially have a little bit of liability there depending on what's conducted
Sure.
with that and what comes of it. The privacy of that child is of the utmost importance in this. So take a look at House Bill or Senate Bill 29, and just give that a look. I just
Okay.
thought that was very interesting.
I haven't heard that one.
Yes, check it out, John, because
will.
it'll, if this goes, it could make a big difference in what you're allowed to inspect and when you can inspect it.
Interesting.
Yes, even though that is owned by the public entity. So,
That could be very interesting.
Yeah.
Especially in my day job. So
Sure.
we definitely want to keep,
Keep an eye on that one.
yes.
yeah, so that is Senate Bill 29. I'll give you the number. You can look it up. Won't go into the detail on that one quite so much because there are some bigger ones that I would like to touch on. Try to summarize Senate Bill 1. That's a big one. That one is an entire restructure. And boy, that one's at the Senate right now. There's a House bill very similar to it. So both chambers of government appear to be on the same track in concept. The concept of the two bills, Senate Bill 1, House Bill 12, I believe it is. Yes, House Bill 12, really does a restructuring of how education is governed in our state. So try to simplify it for you. The idea is to shift the role of the state school board entirely. It would primarily just go down to licensures and those sorts of things. Setting policy, approving curriculum, all of that would move to a governance board, and it would be renamed the Department of Education as Department of Education and Workforce DEW. So school board monitors Department of Education, school board monitoring of that would go away, and that would move into this Department of Education workforce. It creates the position of the Director of Education Workforce, who is appointed by the governor with the advice and consent of the Senate, and is head of the DEW. So it entirely shifts who will control the direction of education. So in a sense, a piece of it would still stay in advisement of elected individuals, and that it moves to the Senate. They are elected, but it moves it away from the state school board. A shift. Establishes within the DEW, which is the new division, of primary and secondary education and the Division of Career Technology Education, each of which is headed by the Deputy Director, appointed by the Director, with advice and consent of the Senate. So, with advice and consent of the elected officials, but still an appointed individual. Transfers most of the powers and duties of the State Board of Education and the superintendent currently. And it retains the state boards and state superintendents' powers and duties regarding educator licensing, disciplinary action, school district territory transfer, so real estate transactions, certain other areas. That's the gist of it. It's a huge bill. There's a lot of language in it, but it really comes down to what is the impact of the structure, and then as a body, we have to decide, do we want to take a position? And if so, what would that position be? The board has previously with various pieces of legislation. In some cases, we've sent correspondence in opposition. Some cases we've supported it, and I think most often we've asked for a blend. We've stated in correspondence what we support, what we agree with, and what we would ask to be changed and how. Because we know it's difficult to govern a community when you don't have input. Someone says they don't like something, but they don't have a suggestion of what to do differently. Mm-hmm. So we were able to come up with suggestions of if there's a piece of it that just doesn't sit well, or we don't think serve the families of our school district best, what is that? And then what would we ask for that to be different? This is a tough one. It really is a tough one, because I think most of us are like-minded in that we like the influence local government can have. We like choice. We like that kind of input. There's something to be said, though, too, that if both bodies of government are heading in this direction, might we want to have at least what input we can? And maybe that would be the blend. And I have really spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I've read articles on both sides. So those who support change, some of the points they made, I cannot say I can personally argue with. The State School Board of Education, depending on how you choose to measure its effectiveness recently, it could be disappointing. They have not been successful in getting a state superintendent secured. And when the last one was in, that was done under what a lot of people call shady deals and created a lot of havoc. Our part of the state's district representative on the state school board doesn't support public education. She prefers homeschooling, and that tax dollars be taken from public schools and put into that direction. So if you think about, does the current structure, is it effective? It's almost two different questions. Do we like the structure on principle? Perhaps. Is that principle so close to heart that we don't want to change it? Perhaps. And is it effective? If it's not effective, then does it need to be changed? And in what way? I personally like that if it's going to be shifted, it's at least somewhat shifted under some influence of elected individuals. It is an appointed position, but it sounds to me, it has to be approved. It has to be approved upon by elected officials. We have means for that now. At the federal level, the President selects the, Supreme Court justices and the whole body has to approve on it. It would follow that kind of a thing. So voters still would have representation just from a different body. Whether that's the appropriate body or not, we have to think about that, but it looks like that's the direction. When I think about what would serve school districts best when it comes to putting together policies and selecting curriculum for the entire state and of diverse communities, how could they get that best? If it's going to be appointed, and then they're going to appoint from there. Might our blend be something like, if this is the direction it's going to go, could we ask for specific criteria of an appointee? There are boards that it's in the private sector. You typically try to have diversification in many, many ways, and one of those being professional background. We've talked often about the board here. We've been fortunate to get to work with people of different professional backgrounds. There's 100 things that come across your desk. So having someone, law enforcement, social work, and all of those things is helpful. Might we ask that there be a representative with this background, this background, this background, so that those various things that need to be taken in consideration are represented there. Everything you do has a financial piece, so I think there's something to be said for that. I think it needs to be heavily weighted as professional educators. A certain number of seats be filled by someone with that background. And I think minority interests need to be represented. And maybe if we're going to, as a state, redo this thing, maybe we take the opportunity to have the input of, if you're going to redo it, then we'd like to see it done in this way. So you wanted to throw that out there. I got to tell you, I still like the local. I like the local representation. I really like that most seats be filled by elected individuals. So that structure is near and dear to my heart. But I think from a practical aspect, it might be wise to take the opportunity to have input beyond just we don't support this. If the majority on both sides of the government are going in this direction, I don't know. This one has me a little bit nervous. I'm usually all about, if it doesn't fit the principle, then a no's a no and a no's okay. But this is politics, folks, and it goes on. What will the majority of elected, officials say, those we've entrusted to create and make the law? What direction are they going? So I will open it up to questions. Don't mind me sharing that. That was formative enough.
I know on the Vanguard Sentinel board, from a career tech aspect, career tech schools are very much in favor of this. And I think, and I don't know all the ins and outs, that's way beyond my pay grade to understand everything that has happened over the years. I think one of the biggest things is career tech has been put on that back burner by ODE. And they feel like, and now all of a sudden, here we are for the last couple of years, and it's, we need personnel, we need trades, we need this. And career tech is sitting there saying, we've been advocating for this for decades now, and we've been pushed aside kind of and been secondary because it's been, let's get our kids to graduate and go on to college, or let's get our kids just to graduate so they can get a degree, but sometimes don't have the skills. And not every, I know we have a lot of programs in our district that can help with that, less than what a career tech school does, but a lot of districts don't offer anything. So it's like, so from a career tech aspect, they're saying this is a welcome thing because we're going to have a bigger seat at the table to say, look at what we have to offer. And seeing what they do, it's amazing, especially with kids it fits right in their bill and they have that opportunity. And we're blessed in our community for Vanguard Sentinel. What an amazing career tech school that we have here to offer our students, to have that and to be a great partnership with all of their associate schools. Man, it's just a great relationship. So I'm sure not everywhere that's the same thing. So from that aspect, I get it. And the other part of it is, how many times, this is my 7th year on the board, and you learn something all the time and you're like, but why is this the way it is? I mean, we can look at the state report card or everything else, or, and it's just, and it comes back to, I mean, sometimes in my mind, I agree with you, Chantel, I go back and forth on this because it's like, well, how many times are we saying, why is the Ohio Department of Education, they're supposed to be full of educators, why are they doing this? And it doesn't make any sense, But then there is the aspect that it is a good, in theory, it's a good system that should be working for all of the students in the state of Ohio. But yeah, it's a big thing.
It is. I think about, I can't believe I'm saying this, but when I look at some of the good things that may come out of this, well, a while back, there maybe still is, there seemed to be a disconnect between K-12 and then higher education.
Mm-hmm.
There was the change in graduation requirements, like, for example, Algebra 2.
Right.
Yet, at the time, most colleges, you needed that for entering into college. So it may have made sense in the conversation certain people were in, but completely forgot that this child, after this, if they want to go this direction, is going to need that. So some of the articles that I was reading on it made it seem as if it would create more continuity. It would tie education into one central location. Mm-hmm. Sometimes centralizing things can bridge gaps. Like, it can take away that disconnect. So I do see efficiencies there. And again, for me, it kind of comes down to, boy, if I can just get my head around that, the representation of elected officials, is our state representatives and our senators versus our school board members, our state school board members. On the other hand, when have we seen our state school board representative in our district versus when have we seen our state representative and our senator? We've seen both of them. In my 8 years, we've seen both in their respective positions. So if I can let go of the ideal and think of what's been the practice, those two elected positions have been more actively involved in what's going on in our school district than the person elected at the state level from the school board has ever been. I think that's a fair statement.
I would agree.
So the more I think about this, trying to open my mind just a little bit.
So I think these are all some scary thoughts. I'll be that guy. New kid on the block. I'll take this one for the team.
Good.
So is that? So I guess I would just want to question then, are the current problems about structure, or are they about personnel? Who is where and what they are or not doing as far as OD is concerned in the state school board? And do you run the risk in making it, or I don't know, supporting a change as such when there's already tumultuous thoughts about what is going on currently? You know what I mean? Like we get frustrated when we're talking about state testing and all the things that, ODE manages, and how can this be a group of educators and we're here? How does that happen? But what will change if you change?
I think that's a great question. That's absolutely a great question. And I wonder,
And is that what you're speaking to when you're talking about representation matters? So if we are going to say, formally as a board, like we would support this if there's this type of representation, access to,
whatever
personnel
we want
or
that to
whatever
look
it
like.
is.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder this. It's a big conversation, and that's a great question. What would change? How those who support this, those who crafted this, specifically, how will these changes make it different from what it is now? How about we ask them, what if this, if you could take a look at, it's from the Ohio Legislative Service Commission. Maybe I can have you email copies of this, John, to everybody.
Okay.
It's got some bullets.
Absolutely.
Just look at the bullets. If you could forward questions, if we were to have Senator Reineke, or, because that's the Senate bill, and then the House bill, which is very similar to it, would be Representative Gary Click. If we could tell them, I just think a meeting goes better. If we have questions structured ahead of time and email them to them, here's the date of the meeting, here's what we'd like you to come and present to us. I think that would be probably a good start on getting a good feel of what we think of what they're proposing.
Just
like
one
we've
quick,
done with other things.
are both of them in favor of each of these? Okay. I mean, I knew Senator Reineke was. I thought.
I talked to
think
Gary
so.
Click, and he said that he doesn't really know much about those because he's not on that committee. Because I asked him about the one bill, the HB one, and there was something to do with the education. And
So he can read it.
He can read
and
them.
get ready.
Yeah, but he doesn't. He didn't have any answers for me because he's not on that. He's in a different. They're on different committees.
But as our representative, anything being proposed that impacts our district, he's to be able to come and answer questions about it.
He could, but he wasn't prepared for my question.
So with this, he can get prepared. And so in fairness to him,
He was talking
Yeah,
about something
yeah,
completely
absolutely.
different. And I
Yeah,
said,
here's
what
what we
about
wanna
this
talk
one?
Know
about.
what we're going to ask about, because it's kind of pointless to have a meeting if they don't have the information that we're asking about.
Right.
I mean,
So in that same vein, one thing that I've liked and appreciated about this group is when we invite one side of the coin,
Yes.
we always invite the other side of the coin so
Yes.
that not only we can be totally educated, but also the public can. And I would think we would
and when I think of,
attempt to.
oh, absolutely. I think this is probably just the introduction. When I think of who we could get, someone credible, we've always really tried to find somebody, a credible source on both sides. Would the OSBA representative be a credible source of those who oppose, do you think, John?
I would think they would understand the implications on both sides. I don't know if they would, I don't know what their strong feelings are, because you raise a good point. I noticed in my own organization, the superintendent's organization, they haven't come out for or against, because across the state, they've found the superintendents are very divided on this. Some think it's a good idea, some don't. So I think you are right on. This is it's big for one, but it's pretty divisive, I think, too. People are either way in or way out. So I think you're right. So we certainly find someone that's rationally looking at maybe the downside of this. Obviously, not everyone's a proponent, so we could certainly try to find someone.
Maybe like we did before with the question of, do we spend dollars in the lawsuit? Is that
Right.
it wasn't down to, we kind of got down to the question of, wasn't so much do we support or not support, but the question is, do we want to spend tax dollars on the lawsuit?
Right.
Maybe that's just where we're at, is to hear from credible sources. How would this change impact positively, and how would it impact negatively?
One thing I've heard a lot of, and I shared this with Mr. Click and with Mr. Reineke, is that there's a political party in charge now. Let's say 4 years from now that switches. So from my chair, I'm thinking, okay, I'm tracking this way legislatively because that's kind of who's calling the shots. Well, if that switches to another party, then okay, then how far is the swing? So I think what you're saying is if you had people on that committee who were educators, not politicians, I think we're going the right direction for sure.
Yeah, to try to, what
But
is
if
the
it's
risk?
appointed, I don't know how you manage that, right? So it's,
Exactly.
oof,
Well, but if we're going to create something new,
right.
then no suggestion is a bad suggestion. It's, well, if we're going to start over, then here and here and here. If this is the risk of the change, these things would mitigate that risk. What might that look like? But I think this is one that's worth several more conversations on and digging into, and then at the end, determining. Do we want to support? Do we want to oppose? Do we want to request a modification? Or we don't have to take a position at all. We can choose to say, maybe we don't have a majority of agreement on it. So as a board, it's not appropriate to take a position. We just act as private, citizens in that case. Or after we hear everybody, we might feel strongly enough, like we have in other things that we do.
I think if nothing else, it's good information for us. I mean, we're a school board for a local district. We need to know what's coming down the pike so that we can be somewhat prepared for whatever that is. I mean, one thing I would hope is if this would go through and all these appointments and however it works out, that, and I get your point, John, that, man, what party is in charge? Does that change things? I would hope that this is a spot where politicians can look at it and say, we're governing every student in the state of Ohio. Politics have to be a side on this because it's not a money thing. It's not, I know there are things out there that are a money thing right now as far as tax dollars go and vouchers and all that kind of stuff. And that is political because there are definitely different thoughts on either side when it comes to that. But when there's a set thing in place of how education needs to be run, man, I tell you, in my mind, that would be an awful big position to be put into, to think you're responsible. I mean, and I look at that as how Department of Education now currently, or our elected board of state board members, man, that's a big task.
Yeah.
To say that you're representing every student in the state of Ohio.
Yep.
And
But we're one of the, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It is. And we are one of the most populous school districts in our state school board representatives area.
right.
And has never been here.
Right. No, I agree.
So how seriously are they taking it? And,
Currently.
yeah, currently.
Right.
And I would say historically, when's the last time you saw anybody
Been a while.
from the
Right.
state school board of education?
And like you said, our representative and senator have both been here at different occasions about different things. And they're in with a lot of other things, not just school. I mean, they're not just dealing with schools. They're dealing with all kinds of other stuff across the state. Yet they still took the time to be here personally.
Sure.
Yeah, so you gotta ask that, and then, like you mentioned, Sarah, the testing and things that we talk about that are just barriers and struggles for educators and students and families, and can't keep complaining about those and do nothing differently.
Right.
Now what that different is, I don't know. And maybe this isn't it. This goes against my grain. It really does. But I'm going to give him credit for trying to do something different.
So I'm just gonna go out here again and say, could be coincidence or could be not. But I just wonder if there's a correlation between the voucher gang of information and this House bill. I can't help to think that it could just be a timing thing. It could be that there is a you know what I mean, a correlation. It just seems like there's some representation with strong stakeholding in the voucher program, and this. I'm not saying that's a real thing. I'm not saying that's true. Let me be clear. Is this thing on? But I would be remiss if I didn't say that.
Of course, yes. No, that they are timed together. It does appear
With a lot of similar people.
in support. Absolutely. I didn't see much financial discussed in Senate Bill 1.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, it mainly was in the structure of authority.
But if the whole point of, you know, the lawsuit right now is about who controls dollars and where they go,
About money.
if the governance goes from the ODE to this new state-run situationship, will that piece that we've, you know, been educated on and talked about change? Because it's a legislative.
I think, and I don't know, that's a great question, Sarah. There's a lot more digging to do. That's a very valid point and a great
Amen
question.
and amen.
The voucher
Yeah, I
system,
don't know.
the voucher want has been around a lot longer than this current restructuring of the Department of Education. I mean, the voucher system came way before it,
Sure.
you know, but again, yeah, does it?
The piece where the dollars follow the child,
Right.
I guess is what more specifically.
Yeah, it's a money
talking
grab.
about.
It's all about where the money goes, you know.
I don't know if the outcome of that though would change based on, does the state school board run the Ohio Department of Education? You know, and select the person that's going to do that, or does this other governing body select the person that's going to do that?
Mhm.
I don't know.
And correct me if I'm wrong, when we had the people coming in and talking about voucher system, didn't the voucher system, the control of that, then those schools that get those dollars that are not public school districts, it became the treasurer of the state of Ohio that monitored that, correct?
That's right.
Which,
Outside of the Department of Ed. That's right.
right. So in my mind, I mean, I guess that's a little separation from these new bill, because that's already in the work. I mean, in the thought of voucher system, that it goes to the treasurer of the state of Ohio, where I don't know, the treasurer isn't part of any of this process. I mean,
The treasurer is a totally separate elected position at the
right.
state level.
And they don't have any stake in
Right.
this. So that would give me at least a little assurance
Little
that,
segregation of duties.
but we're still, I know.
just throwing it all out on the
get
table
it.
for
No, I get it.
Absolutely.
Stranger things have happened.
Well, and our state school board representative supports homeschooling, which would support vouchers.
Neat story, huh?
Yeah. So
Which is crazy that, I mean, I'm not calling her out because I've never met her, but why are you on the State Board of Education when you don't want public education?
Message.
I don't quite, I mean, other than the fact that let's see if we can really make this fail so it really promotes this other side of it. And again, I'm not against choice or anything else, but yikes.
Lori, back to your point, in all fairness to Representative Click, I didn't talk to him personally on the support. I'd heard that he had supported this. It goes along with like the backpack and some of the other things. Some of the things that are in it seem similar. So in all fairness, I did not ask him, but we should
I think it was
bring him.
that one about the taxes, about how they were gonna like make a level tax. I asked him questions about that, and he's like, I have to look into that one. He goes, I don't have anything, I don't know. And he was talking about a whole different other. They were talking about some completely different when I walked in. So
Are our next steps maybe to take a look at the summary and submit our questions and thoughts to John? And once we gather those, request that, you know, I would say one of the legislators, because that's who's crafting this. Is in support. And then if maybe not the OSBA, I'll look for a credible representative. Maybe there's a legislator that doesn't support it.
Right. And that's what I was
Even
going
if
to
they're
say.
not in our district.
Right,
they're
not of our
either
district,
from the
but
same
willing to
governing
come.
body, willing to come and discuss the other side. Would that be all right if there's a senator in another district that's willing to come to Fremont for a night?
Or who is this absent person that we're speaking of who's not ever shown face here?
Oh,
On the state
Oh, the state school board?
Yeah, our representative.
I'll get her name for you.
I mean, would that be the appropriate person to? I don't know.
Well, I mean, the only thing is
But she's not the one, you mean for opposition?
Correct.
I don't
But-
know if she's in opposition or not.
right.
We could
Even
find
though,
out.
I mean,
Understood.
I would think the State Board of Education would be in opposite. Well, maybe not. Some people would be in opposition of this, but not necessarily maybe the elected state board members, but employees of ODE, probably, I would guess the whatever chairman or whoever the head honcho is of ODE that's not a state board member would be in opposition of it because it's going to drastically change that. But
Do you think this might have something to do with that they were moving it into, didn't they have the governor move everything into his
yeah.
care? So maybe they're trying to take it and move it to another direction so that it's not under him only? I mean,
So as it's written right now, the position, what's currently the ODE would be renamed and it would go under the governor. He would put a director
Okay.
versus a state superintendent.
so this supports
then
that.
Yes, that's what
Okay.
this is. That's
Okay.
what this bill is. And
Okay.
then that person has to be approved by,
I thought that bill already passed for some reason, but maybe not.
yes, but then they have to reconcile differences and come back.
So are they going to get rid of the Board of Education, the Ohio Board of Education altogether then? I mean, they would abolish that, wouldn't they, if this
It
happens?
changes their level of authority. They would strictly be in charge of licensure and disciplinary.
Teacher discipline, yeah.
Yeah. Real estate transfers of school districts.
Boundaries,
Okay.
yeah.
which is a whole nother
That's just-
hot mess.
yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about just taking them completely out.
one tonight, okay?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This is a big conversation.
Yeah.
It
It's
is.
a
I mean, it
huge
just
change
doesn't
in
seem-
structure. So, I say, yeah, let's get people from both sides.
To the best of our ability, sure, yeah.
There's fires to be put out everywhere. I mean, I think my daughter is student teaching right now and going through the licensure process. I'm like, this is absolutely ridiculous.
Brutal.
It amazes, and I know this is going off on a tangent and I apologize, but it falls under ODE and everything else, is we're trying to make it easier for teachers because we have a teacher shortage, but it is absolutely ridiculous what are the tests that they have to take?
Yeah.
Is it OTES?
Yep.
And they're taking a test. She wants to be a kindergarten teacher. They're taking a test on ancient Chinese civilizations.
Often taught in kindergarten.
Yes.
Remember that?
And if she doesn't get it, she can't get a license to teach K-5. I'm like, so sorry to go off on that, but that's a whole nother thing that falls under OD. I mean, again, it's like,
Well, and it kind of speaks to what, Chantel said a little bit earlier about current structure. Like if the current structure,
sucks.
maybe we do need to look at a change, but with
Something.
it's a good conversation for sure.
And
Yeah,
I agree.
it's
More
huge,
information on it, the better.
Well, and I'll
for
just
all
step
government
one more
stepping in,
step
taking
out
over
on a limb
stuff as it
here.
is. I mean, I think
Maybe
we
our
should be in
own
charge of
educators need
a lot
to
of that. They should
have a
put it on the
voice.
local.
like in that in this conversation as well, however that looks. And again, that just to give their thoughts so that we have, some thoughts about the people this actually affects on a day-to-day basis.
For sure. My guess is this, as we have each representative come, we'll probably come up with some more questions as we understand a little more to this. Lori, just so you know, local school boards would stay intact, at least from what I read, because we would still have to take what they put together as law and create policy for the districts. Just
I just think they should step off a little bit more and not so much dictate as much as they do, maybe. Like, just let the local government take care of their local place. And then they quit stepping in and trying to take over local schools and local, just kind of, I don't know.
unfortunately, those for
then it
it
goes
or
all the way
against
up.
it, either one, they're not proposing that the state relinquishes control and gives it locally. They're just shifting which one of them is going
Who's
to
gonna
have
take the
control.
Yeah, and I think they should just kind of back off and just let the local governments take their local.
So my proposal is this: could everybody? I have a copy here. You can get it online.
We can make copies
But
before we
if you
leave
could make
tonight.
a copy.
Yep.
It's just a nice bulleted outline, and this is right from the Ohio Legislative Service Commission. So, check that out, and then just formulate whether that's a statement of concern or a question. Either one. And if you have some thoughts, if you support it or if you're in opposition, put that in there of what that is and why. And then we can invite Senator Reineke to come. And as well invite Representative Click too, because there is one just like it in the House.
Right.
And then I will search for a good credible source on opposition that we would do the same thing to. The same set of questions present to the one in opposition. That sound okay?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chantal.
You bet. Sorry this took a little while. I knew it would be a big one.
Good.
Is that all for the legislative report?
Yes.
Okay. No,
That's blunt. That's plenty.
no, that's a lot to chew on, but I didn't want to cut you short if there was more, because you never know, coming out of the state, there could be more. Okay, so we're back to community. Abby's already spoken, so I think we can skip on the community. No one's going to get up and talk. So moving on to the report of the superintendent.
All right. Thanks, folks. Appreciate that. And I don't think enough credit's been given to Ms. Abernathy. She runs an amazing department, and her heart is in it. She's the right person for that job. She's special. She's one of my amazing helpers. Just a quick comment. Our next meeting is the Monday after our spring break. So there won't be really much activity in the district for that last week of, well, it's next week, so the first week of April, I guess I should say. So I was going to ask the board, Mrs. King might have a few things to act on, but they're basically, we'll have like 4 days this week, and then we're going to be out till our next meeting. So we may not have much business. So I was going to ask if, with your permission, to maybe contact you like midway through next week during spring break and let you know maybe the necessity of that meeting. I may not have anything, I guess, if that's okay with you. We'll just make it a conversation if it, kind of how the agenda looks, because there just won't be much action, I don't think, in the board office during spring break. And there'll only be a couple days from this meeting until we'll be off. And then we'll be off all the way then until our next meeting. So if that's okay, I'll kind of reach out to you on that. That'd be great. Thank you. I appreciate your flexibility on that. And it's springtime. There may be some hires we'll need to act on, but I'll let you know if that's okay. Thank you so much. Two things, like I said, Mr. Price, thank you for that walk-on. We'll add that into item, right behind item number 1. And then there's an edit. Would you look on the top of page 4 of 6? It should say for Connie Snyder, retirement, not resignation. Does yours say resignation?
Yes.
Yeah, could you scratch that out, please, for retirement? That way we've got it kind of voted in properly. And I apologize, we missed that till we were proofing that document. So Thank you. All right, if I may, Mr. Price, go ahead and proceed.
Yep.
Thank you very much. First one is our second reading of that policy. If you remember, this is the one that will have us put on our website that we're meeting. I think it's something we've already done, but it just puts it in policy. Item 2 is the walk-on. It's there in front of you. I think there's no better night than tonight to recognize the need for maybe a community health services available to our students. This basically just an agreement that we will officially partner with Community Health Services as they start applying for a grant. They can use then this board action to kind of strengthen their grant writing process to show the camaraderie and cooperation between our agencies. So that's those two. I think we need a roll call then after item 2, if we could.
Okay. So the walk-on will become the new item number 2.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve items 1 and 2, please?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lewis. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Spiritu. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Miss Lewis?
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Ms. Laird?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes, motion's approved.
All right, so now we have the very big challenge of changing every number by 1. So as we go forward, we'll see how many times we can mess that up, right? So item 3, which was previous known as item 2, we have the administration for third grade testing on paper. I think you've done this for us for quite a few years now, and we just still believe that 8-year-olds have a better shot at this test with a pencil and paper than they do trying to manage not only the test, but also managing the device. So with your permission, we'll let them use paper and pencil as we have done for quite a few years now. Then going on, do we have a? No, we'll keep moving. Okay. Resignation for cheerleading there from Melissa Purcell George. She's done a great job, but she's going to step away from that. She's been doing it a long time, too. Continue with personnel, we have Connie Schneider. That's the one we asked you to edit a bit. That is retirement, and we wish her well. She's done a great job for us. Resignation, Sharon Beckley, Margaret Edwards, and Severo Ramirez. Item 5, which was for staff substitute McKenna Davis. The next item is a termination of a 90-day probationary period, just so you could see that. The next item then are supplemental contracts. We have Alex Carresso coming back as head soccer coach. Top of the next page, we got another lifeguard, which we are desperately short of. And item 8 or 9, a status change for Blanca Rupp, one of our bus drivers. That concludes our personnel.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve items 3 through 9, please?
So moved.
Sorry, I didn't see who it was. Sorry. Motion by Mrs. Bloom. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Laird. Any discussion?
I have a question. Since we vote every time to have the paper test, I mean, are there other districts that do the same thing?
Yes.
You would
Yeah,
think
state law is you have to do it on the device electronically unless the board approves the paper version. So that we have to have permission every year to do that.
I just thought if everybody was asking, just change it.
Right. No, there are some districts that do it on the device. Yeah.
Speaking of ODE,
Dysfunction.
let's do a third grade reading test on a computer.
Yep. You got it.
Any other discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Ms. Laird?
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes, motion's approved. All right, moving on to report of the treasurer.
Good evening, everybody. Hopefully you all got to go to the spring musical this weekend. I went on Saturday night and it was very entertaining and I thought it was a very good show. I was very biased. I had very soft spot for the individual who played Karen. That is one of my nieces and she wanted that role so badly. So I was very happy to see her. She's a freshman, so she was very happy to get that role. And I think she did amazing. So.
Of course.
Notice how you got that on record.
Right.
Hey. I have to take care of these kids so they take care of me when I get old.
That's right.
So it was very nice to see. And I thought everybody involved did a very wonderful job that night. Oh, and just I don't think I reported on this last time. Lorraine County has filed appeal, so Nexus money will not be coming in anytime soon.
Never mind, right.
Never mind.
Just kidding.
Just kidding.
Here we go again.
So close.
We need to flood some people with phone calls. What is their point?
I've talked about this with John. There is a part of me that understands what
Frustration. Yeah.
the frustration of what Lorraine County is saying. These utility companies come in and promise everybody involved that they're going to get all of this money and we're going to be so wonderful in your community. And then they come in and say, I only want to pay 48% of what the appraised value is on these.
35% at one time. Yeah.
Yeah, at one point, and you're like, well, wait a minute. You promised us the world and now you're coming in and wanting to only pay a third of this. So part of me gets it, but then there's also the part of me that knows that there are school districts, which fortunately we are not one of them, that banked on this money and started projects on this money, and they're only getting a small portion. They're not getting the back years, and so they're at standstills on projects sitting out there because we're in limbo with what is the state came back and said this amount, but now we're appealing it. And
It's unfortunate.
It's really, and personally, I'm just like, I just want it done. I just want to know how much money is coming in. I know you're all shocked to hear that. But I just want it over with. If the state came back and said, okay, you are only supposed to pay 58, your value is 58% of what it originally was, here you go. Okay. But at the same time, I kind of get where they are fed up with these utility companies that come in and say, hey, we're going to put this in your community and you're going to get all this money. No, just kidding.
And I think too, isn't there a question about we don't even have a voice at the table to challenge any of it. We're simply, we can't say anything. It's completely up to the county auditor. So the process seems a little wacky too.
What I'm about to say isn't going to change any of it. But there again, it comes down to the principle of something versus its practicality.
Right.
I agree with them wholeheartedly in principle.
Yeah.
But the state came up with a settlement.
Yeah.
And to be the one district that prevents everyone from having some sort of gain seems to be more detrimental than helpful. They're not likely to win this. They know that. I mean, do they have enough in there? I kind of want to say, do you want to pay us the back interest on what you could be investing that money with now?
Trust me, yeah.
With where rates are, I mean, it's been a lot of years since people could earn money on deposits. It's been great if you want to borrow money for a long, long time, but we're in historic times that it's shifted in the other direction. So public entities that have a little bit of money could earn some nice interest, and that would matter right now. Holding that up matters.
I have a principal or a superintendent that said that they're just so frustrated because they know the projects that they had planned are now just escalating in cost because they can't act. So they can attach real loss to this action. So it's
But you might not have
ugly.
been wise to bank on something that wasn't signed.
Well, I'll give you that, right?
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
But yeah. Well, there you go for what
There you
that's
go.
worth.
So does the appeal, since the districts don't have a seat at the table, the appeal comes from the county
Lorraine
auditor.
County auditor.
Of
And
what, the
then
11 counties or
Has
something?
there been anything to say, since it's Supreme Court, like how far down on the docket is this? Like any time frame whatsoever?
They have
This one
not
took a
get-
year,
Yeah.
year and a half, right?
This one, they filed it in August of last year, and then March. Yeah, I think the decision came down in March or end of February to dismiss the case. And now Lorraine is again appealing. So it could be another year. It could be longer. It's just very frustrating to just think, okay, we can finally we can plan, we can invest this money, which is what I would love to be able to do right now with it. But no, we're back in the holding period. So, but So, kind of jump into my financial report. We are actually doing well with investments. We are up $100,000 from last year because we have had a little bit of a surplus that we have been able to invest in. We are doing very well. I went to a training a couple weeks ago, and it was very interesting to see that we're in this inverted with investments. The shorter termed investments are having the highest percentage of return, and the longer term ones have a lower rate just because they're so unpredictable. So they're like, we actually just have a couple CDs that we put in 1 year that we got a 5% yield on. So it's just a very interesting time to be in with interest rates right now.
So this because you don't want to commit to how much you want to keep paying somebody.
Because it's so crazy.
Yep.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I'll promise for this long.
Which, the CD thing is always that long, right? Long range plan, but not now. Yeah.
It's
Wow.
historic.
Moving target. Moving target.
It's so funny. I get emails from our investment dealers and a couple other entities, and they're like, I don't know what to tell you. They're like, short term is the best option right now just because of how high those rates are. So that is the really positive thing with our revenue right now. Real estate taxes might look a little low, but that's just because we didn't get our final settlement until March. So you'll have a better picture of real estate tax wise what came in. And then with our expenses, we're just a little bit up with our salary and benefits, which is we've wanted to kind of keep as low as possible without much rise. And it's been doing pretty steady at that. There's a little bit of a rise, but we've been able to keep pretty flat on salary and benefits. Trying to think if there's nothing else that really jumped out this month, but those were some of the bigger highlights. So if I can get a motion for item 10.
Can I get a motion to approve item 10, please?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Laird. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Spiritu. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Laird?
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes, motion's approved.
And then we have item 11. I have a couple supplemental appropriations. With the class of 2023, they had some extra expenses with some higher t-shirt sales, and then just some other end of the year expenses that are coming up. They're noticing an increase of costs that they weren't able to anticipate at the beginning of the year. So they're asking for a little bit. They have the cash, but they just need a little bit more appropriated to that line for the class of 2023. And then Ross football, there was a training, an additional training that they found and want to send the coaches to. So.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve item 11, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Spiritu. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Lewis. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Spiritu?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Ms. Laird?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes, motion's approved. Moving on to board member communications. Lori.
Well, thank you, Abby, and all your co-workers and everybody that had come to speak and hear all the stuff that's going on, everything that they take care of. I've had 3 kids go through Ross, and they had Mr. Shell and Mrs. Fry helped with one of my other girls. So, but yeah, they're a good group of people, and they did a good job. And the dog, my daughter, who just graduated a couple years ago, she's like, they got a dog at school. I want to go pet it. So she'd go pet her. So she was all excited about that. But yeah, thank you, Abby, or Megan, for all your information, and your legislative report was very informative, and it's going to be something interesting to look into and to see which way they decide to take this and what they do with it when they get it, where it's going, and how we handle it. how everybody handles it. So, but yeah, that's it.
Anything else?
Kind of echoing what Lori says. Thanks, Abby, for bringing in part of the team to hear all the work that they do. I mean, sometimes you don't hear that part. It's always like focused on teachers and students, and there's like so much more staff that helps the students and the families. And I mean, it's a very important for us to know, but the public too, and the community to know what is going on in the schools and what is being offered, and why we need our levy passed. And Chantel, thanks for always bringing us great information. It's going to be a great conversation to hear both sides and see where it's going to fall.
Sure.
Okay.
Also, thank you, Abby. I am amazed at what's provided for the well-being of a child outside of what's in the text. If the well-being of the child isn't taken care of, doesn't matter what's in the text. They're not going to be a good performing student. So it's so incredibly important. And over the years, I'll just say over the years, societal changes and, various barriers and challenges, family structure changing, all kinds of things happening. There's so many more hands needed around that child. And there is no bigger giver, in my opinion, than the public school to children. There's no bigger giver of everything that child needs, from their physical well-being, of overall health, their nutrition, the nurses, and then their mental health is of the utmost concern here. And I think that was great, as Tom said, to be able to highlight that in a way that parents, community members can come back and see, and that's only half. It's only half. And that's an awful lot. So thank you very much for that. I truly appreciate that. And staff and everybody involved. Thank you.
Okay. Sarah?
Thank you so much. The team that you brought in gave us a wealth of information, not only to consider, but also for the public to be made aware of. I am a note taker while I listen. That's part of my learning process. And there was a couple of things that were said that just kind of struck me. When we were talking about the nursing department, and for some kids, this is the only medical professionals that they see. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. There's lots of children and families that depend on, the services that our nurses provide, the mobile dentist referrals elsewhere. So that's something that just kind of struck me. Also, as far as mentoring is concerned, and just like that continuum of care, like you just described, a student referred doesn't mean a student is at risk. So all of our children could benefit from some caring adult in the community to help them out. So those are some pieces I took away with a myriad of other things. The play was wonderful. We went all 3 nights. Megan, I do have a little bit of a bias for a certain principal that was in the play. But those kids did a great job and they had fun doing it. And again, just to see kids who may not outside of the play be friends with each other, they were a solid group. The way they cheered for each other after the play was over and high-fived, and just the camaraderie, that was just kind of awesome to see. So Chantel, thank you for a great conversation starter. And it's nice just to be able to speak freely amongst a group in order to, with the same mission in mind. So thank you.
I'm going to reiterate, Chantel, thank you for the information. I think there's possibly some big changes or issues coming for public school districts, and we need to stay on top of that. So what a great way to be able to do that, to have that conversation and know what's coming to help our district out. Abby, thank you for coming in, bringing your coworkers. A big thank you to all the work that everyone does in those departments. The amount of work and everything. And I think to piggyback off of what Chantel says, you think, and I was thinking the same thing, a public school district can take a kid for 13 years, 9 months out of the year, 6 or 7 hours a day, and provide more than just a classroom and a lunch. I mean, the services that we have there, the possibility of having John, you sent us an email about partnering with a company where hot meals for after school programs. Yep. I mean, there is so much that is provided by a public school district. Hopefully community members take advantage of it, whether it's your kid, whether it's your grandkid. Man, call somebody up, because we have so many staff members that are just waiting to help that kid even more. It shows. I mean, you can just tell. So what a great resource for our community that we can offer. So there's a lot to be said for that public school district. It's not just a classroom with some books and some homework and a lunch added into it. So great job to everybody. So spring sports are going.
Yep.
Good luck to all those teams and everything going on. It's going to be a busy spring. Hopefully we get some warmer weather. Not so rainy for all those games, so they don't get postponed and make a big hot mess at the end of the season. So with that, there's no reason for an executive session.
Actually, I was going to make a motion for a quick one under item B.
Okay.
Very quick.
All right. So we have a motion to move into executive session by Ms. Laird under item B. I'll second that. We could have a roll call, please.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Ms. Bloom,
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis.
Yes.
Motion's approved. We'll move into executive session. There won't be any action taken after that. We'll just adjourn as soon as we leave executive session. So for the public to know, no more action will be taken. So,
Thank you.